rising above the atmosphere, floating in interstellar space. Aboard the ISS, the International Space Station, I'm about to embark on an extraordinary adventure. My home will be this vessel floating 400 kilometers above your head. A vessel that circles the Earth 16 times a day, and that you can spot on certain nights floating by in the starlit sky. For 16 years, the space station has been continuously occupied by crews of men and women from different countries who have only themselves for company. For 6 months, in my turn, I'll eat there, sleep there, and above all, work there. A lot. I'll carry out scientific experiments that will benefit people on Earth. I'll have the ground for ceiling, and the ceiling for ground. And I'll touch the stars with my fingertips. My name's Thomas Pesquet, I'm an astronaut. I'm in training for a mission, 6 months in the International Space Station. I think future space conquest is very important for everyone. The further we look into space and the more we look at our past, it's clear that a planet like Mars is where our future lies. We're advancing in an environment which is difficult, but we're advancing quickly. It's an incredible journey. Let's pursue this adventure together. You won't be disappointed. I've always been fascinated with the idea of space travel ever since I was little. My father and I used to pretend play at it. He made me a cardboard spaceship and he'd drawn dials on pieces of folded card to represent the cockpit. I'd spend all my time in there, never wanting to come out. That's one of my earliest memories linked with space exploration. And then later, of course, I'd watch all the space shuttle launches on TV. I was completely fascinated by them.
Start, 2, 1, booster ignition, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond.
And now it's my turn. The space station that is soon going to house me is the largest and most complex man-made construction ever carried out in space. This gigantic structure, the size of a football field, was assembled entirely in space over a period of 13 years, beginning in 1998. It took no less than 140 space shuttle and rocket launches to transport the modules and the men who installed them from America, Europe, and Asia. The space station project is an international project, which means that several countries pooled their resources together to make it happen. It would have been impossible to achieve for one individual country. So that explains the success of the ISS. Of course, this complicates things a bit because we don't all speak the same language, we don't all share the same culture, but in the end we're doing something that surpasses this, and what's more, we're doing it, as far as possible, on behalf of everyone. American, Russian, European, Canadian and Japanese space agencies representing 16 different nations joined forces to complete this colossal construction site.
The first component of the ISS was the Russian-built control module, the central module. So in 1998, this central module was launched, and it's on this foundation stone, if you like, that the rest of the edifice was built.
All the modules were built in all corners of the globe, you might say. There were Russian modules, Japanese modules, Canadian components, and European components, which were built in 10 or 15 different countries, and all these elements docked in space with no problem.
The modules were installed out in space, on either side of a 108-meter-long truss structure that forms the backbone of the station. It supports gigantic solar arrays, which provide our electricity. These modules are each the size of a large truck. They house at the same time our storage spaces, workspaces, and living spaces.
All right, down into node 1, station's gonna open up. Butch, go high!
Most of them are set up as laboratories for conducting scientific experiments. One of these modules, Columbus, is the largest European contribution to the space station.
Like Columbus before you, you've braved adversity. We wish you smooth sailing to the new world among the stars. Thanks very much, Jerry. We're looking forward to race flight.
7 of my fellow astronauts were enlisted for the Columbus mission in the winter of 2008. With the modules stored in the hold of the American space shuttle, they arrive at the space station. Once the space shuttle has docked at the station, Columbus is docked in its turn, almost entirely manually.
Columbus is touching the station for the first time.
Beautiful work, Leo.
Our mission was to bring the European module, Columbus. Once the physical connection had been made, it was then necessary, of course, to pressurize the section between the two modules in order to be able to open the door and begin Columbus's life in space. I was fortunate enough to be the one to open the door and turn on the light in the European module for the first time.
All right! Great job, guys!
Since then, this floating laboratory has become, for we, the European astronauts, the heart of the ISS, the place where we spend most of our time. In total, the modules of the space station form a living space the size of a Boeing 747, but a Boeing that's almost entirely windowless. It's in this series of cylinders that the astronaut's daily life takes place, all nationalities combined.
Hello, I'm Sunny Williams. I'm up here on the International Space Station. We're going into the Russian segment. Be ready. Doing a little tour. Можно? Снимаем. Чуть-чуть. So here we are in the heart of the space station. It has Russian computers as well as American computers to help us control anything we need to on the space station. And you can probably see on the wall behind Oleg and Yuri some of the heroes of the space programs, and of course on the right-hand side, Yuri Gagarin, the first man to go into space. So just reminds us of our roots. Okay, спасибо.
This remembrance of space exploration is our shared heritage in the station, whatever our nationality. Each participant country has the right to a certain number of astronauts according to its contribution to the ISS. And as a general rule, each one occupies the modules provided by his or her country of origin.
There are living quarters in the Russian segment, there are living quarters in the American segment. So the Russians, for example, will eat in their own separate area because that's where their resources are. The Americans and Japanese will eat in the other dining area. But there are no borders, no need for a visa or passport to go from one segment to the other.
All right, a little farther on. Come on. Here's a pretty cool place. This is sort of like in your house where everybody meets in the morning. This is our kitchen. You might notice there's all sorts of foods here. It's like opening the refrigerator. You got all your different stuff that you want to have: drinks, meats, eggs, vegetables, cereals. Not only is this food made in the U.S., but we also have food here from Japan. We've got Russian food. As you can see, all these red containers are filled with food that's from Russia. So you have a lot of food up here, no problems.
We need to go to yet another module, Tranquility, to finally discover the station's only window, looking out over our beautiful blue planet.
I think some questions I had were about what do you do in your free time? And you can't help but want to just come to the cupola and look outside as much as you can. It's like a glass-bottom boat. A little bit cloudy, as you can tell, but we're right over the continent of Africa.
There's free time in the station for personal activities, especially on a 6-month mission, so people do their own thing. But one of the main activities is observing the Earth, observing its geography, trying to see aurora borealis, observing storms from above. So I don't think I'm going to be any different. I'm going to be just as fascinated as everyone else by these natural wonders and by the fragility, too, of our planet. 28,000 kilometers per hour, 8 kilometers per second. That's the vertiginous speed at which the ISS circles the blue planet beneath us, and which has enabled the ISS to remain in orbit around the Earth at a constant altitude for 18 years.
Its initial horizontal speed is sufficiently high to maintain it in constant circular orbit around the Earth. However, even at an altitude of 400 kilometers, although the atmosphere is very thin, there's still some atmospheric friction which reduces the speed of the station, causing it to lose altitude. It loses around 10 or so meters of altitude per day. So an onboard thruster attached to the back of the ISS is used about every 2 months to push the station higher up in order to maintain it at an altitude of around 400 kilometers.
This high-precision, gigantic machine, this $150 billion construction, would never have been possible without the unprecedented alliance formed by all these countries. The United States, Russia, Europe, Japan, Canada, which govern its operation with a single voice from Earth.
The International Space Station is also a tool of scientific diplomacy, which means that we are capable of conferring together, of finding solutions together, even at times when things aren't going too well. Even today, one can feel that the ISS is a tool of enlightened diplomacy, attempting to succeed in its mission, despite conflictual relations between the United States and Russia, and sometimes between Europe and Russia. This diplomacy via the ISS exists, so that's one of the merits of the International Space Station.
The shuttle arm is at OBSS handoff position, and you are go for OBSS ungrapple.
Who could have imagined that space would become a domain of international cooperation when 50 years ago it was the battleground for the space race? How was such a feat made possible?
We need to remember there was a bipolar world at that time. The Soviets and Americans were fiercely competing in the space race.
Через несколько минут могучий космический корабль унесет меня в далекие просторы Вселенной.
The Soviet Union got an early lead by launching Sputnik 1. followed by the first human in space, Gagarin. Everyone remembers this.
But in this space race, the Americans very quickly take over the lead.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
It took the Americans just 7 years to achieve the impossible.
There you go. This is Dear Man from the planet Earth. First set foot upon the moon. July 1969 AD.
But already the two rivals are looking further ahead. Not content with just conquering space, they want to be able to inhabit it. And once again, it's the Soviets who win the race. In 1986, with the Mir space station, they managed to keep men out in orbit for long periods of time. Very long periods.
7,000 orbits of the Earth and over 14 months spent in space for Valery Polyakov.
The Americans had every interest in obtaining this know-how at the end of the Cold War.
Instead of building weapons in space, Russian scientists will help us to build the International Space Station. Beginning this year, 1998, men and women from 16 countries will build a foothold in the heavens. The International Space Station, with its vast expanses, scientists and engineers will actually set sail on an uncharted sea of limitless mystery and unlimited potential.
On January the 29th, 1998, the signing of the agreement for the International Space Station ratifies the transition from competition to cooperation. From the conquest of space to space exploration. Almost 2 decades later, as I get ready to go there, the space station more than ever rallies the partner countries around a common goal: preparing human beings for life in space, ever longer, ever further. To do this, it needs to be peopled with flesh and blood beings. Men and women capable of living confined for several months in an extreme environment. With a view to sending astronauts into orbit, in 2008, the European Space Agency launched a recruitment campaign. This is how I found myself as a candidate amongst 8,400 aspirants from all over Europe, all ready to take up the challenge to fulfill their dream of exploring space. And this is how, at the age of 31, I became an astronaut. You have to be lucky enough to be born in the right place at the right time, because Europe doesn't have many astronauts. There's a selection process about every 15 years, so you have to be at the right age when it takes place. I got lucky there, I started with. So I signed up, not completely without hope, because you do your best anyway, but thinking that it was reserved for supermen and that I wasn't in that league. So I'd give it my best shot, even though I thought it was reserved for an incredible elite, which wasn't the case, as it happens. And then, the closer I got to the end of the selection, I started to think, wow, this is beginning to get real. We're now down to 50, then 20, then 10, and it's only during the final selection phase that I said to myself, it can't end for me here. That would be really too bad after getting this far. And strangely enough, the final phases were the least selective, in fact, as 6 out of 10 were taken. But for me, these were the most difficult. Handling the most stressful situations with composure. This needs to be the mantra of an aspiring astronaut.
The aim is not to be the best on all the tests. If we look for astronauts, we look for people that are moderate or above average, but in a lot of domains. You have to be intelligent enough, so you have to have a master's degree in science or in engineering, but you don't have to be the most intelligent person of the whole university. So I think these were certainly some of the aspects that helped Thomas being selected.
You have astronauts with scientific backgrounds, volcanologists, oceanographers, astrophysicists, nuclear physicists, a Japanese heart surgeon. You have technical professions, propulsion, computer, structural engineers. You have professions that are already operational, airplane and helicopter pilots, submariners, professional divers, Navy frogmen. And all this diversity enriches the group's ability to innovate, to find solutions.
The Italians, Samantha and Luca. Alexander, the German. Andreas, the Dane. Timothy, the Brit. These are 5 other successful candidates. We won't all leave for the space station at the same time.
Thomas Pesquet, European astronaut of French nationality.
But from this moment on, I know I'm going to have to put my private life on hold. These 5 will be my only family.
How I feel right now is that, of course, I'm overjoyed about being selected as an astronaut, but I'm also thankful to ESA for selecting me, for selecting us as a team. And I think we're all, maybe I will speak for everybody, maybe we're all very impatient to begin and to try to prove ESA right in its choice, and we'll do our best for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The astronauts for sure are not perfect. Nobody is perfect, including astronauts, but they have a lot of inherent capabilities. And it's therefore that we use the training to enhance the inherent capabilities and the inherent knowledge that they have so that they can apply it to their space missions and to their space flights.
Commander Charlie Hope on lines, Space Shuttle Atlantis upwards. Touchdown in just over 1 minute.
For my space flight still remains a long way in the future. In the meantime, a long assault course awaits me. 7 years are going to pass between my selection and my departure for the space station. 3rd day. Still walking. Still haven't found water. 7 years of training in all parts of the world, testing our physical and psychological limits. And assimilating new astronomical knowledge. I was an airline pilot. I've now become an expert mechanic. This is a training course on airplane maintenance, very similar to what takes place in space. Hydraulic connections, electrical connections, a lot of mechanics. I've learned how to use the space station's computer system.
You can click no.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Before the flight, there's an enormous amount of information to retain. You can see behind me here, it's a very complex environment. Behind each panel like this one, there are complex systems to purify the air, to exchange information, to communicate with ground control, to support life in the station.
The astronaut has a strong sense of commitment. He wants to succeed in his mission, 100%. He doesn't want to come back and say, it was too hard, I didn't succeed. All the astronauts strive for excellence during training in order to be serene at the time of takeoff, and having gained confidence in themselves and in the team with which they form a whole, to succeed.
Like all the ISS crew members, I'm going to travel to the station aboard the Russian spacecraft Soyuz. I'll be fitted with a custom-made seat molded to my body to better absorb the vibrations during takeoff. I realized then just how important it is to speak Russian in this adventure.
Сейчас что-нибудь хуже стало или?
Нет, все нормально, да.
In the confined space of the International Space Station, mastering several languages will be essential to communicate with my travel companions, who will be from all different countries. What's important now is the psychological aspect, much more than before. Before we didn't know what to expect, so we sent people out into space who were sort of explorers, warriors, etc. Now we have long-term missions, so we need to have a good working relationship with people we haven't chosen in a confined space for 6 months. You need to have team players, people who are easy to get along with. We're selected for that, so everyone's been tested psychologically. There won't be any psychopaths or people who are too individualistic, for example, because that would cause problems up there because we work as a team, like on a ship. To help develop our capacity to live in these conditions in space, we embark on a journey, underground, in the bowls of Sardinia. The aim is to remain confined for 6 days in a hostile environment without cracking.
Are you okay? Are you okay? Okay.
Obviously, the astronauts are not familiar with the cave. But this cave requires you to go through a via ferrata, a long cable, where you do the same protocol that you do for doing extravehicular activity in the Orion spacesuit. So we try to give them new tasks that they are not good at.
Everything here is unusual. We've been underground and everything's been the same. No changes in temperature, no weather, no nothing. It's just been the same darkness.
The skyline behind me is actually quite dark, and each day and each night are the same. We wake up in the morning expecting to see the sunrise, and in fact, it's not there.
It's muddy, it's dirty, you have no privacy. So it's an alien environment, you have to adapt. Like in space, you have to adapt, and you have to live together within a team with close quarters. You have to share the little pairs that you have. You have to plan accurately what you bring with you. You have to do science, explore. So you feel confined away for a while, and you have to live with your peers.
We are 6 of us, 5 different nations, and we learn a lot about leadership, followership, and how to cope with the stresses, and how to survive in a harsh environment.
They will have to share sometimes their pee bottle. They will have to carry back the trash of each other. They will have to share the place where they leave their human waste. They will have to use the same forks. So that changes your perception of other people, and you have to really be close to them and appreciate the differences and how that helps the team to go ahead. That's, for me, an ideal way to prepare people for long-duration spaceflight.
Going home. After 3 days, I can say that I really enjoyed it. I'm really happy to be here, and I hope it continues forward for a couple more days, but maybe not too many days, because we also will be happy to see the sun again.
Fantastic. We're now finally ready to be able to live together without killing one another during a long-term spaceflight.
Vehicle to internal power.
So at T-minus 35 seconds, the first umbilical tower has separated from the booster. And liftoff.
Our departure for the space station that we've dreamed of for so long can now be programmed.
International Space Station.
Beautiful clear skies over the Baikonur Cosmodrome as the Soyuz disappears into the sky.
Eight minutes and 32 seconds after liftoff, it's very rapid. 8 minutes and 32 seconds after liftoff, we switch off the engines for good. From now on, we're in orbit, until we do something to come back. From now on, we're weightless. We float.
Soyuz continuing to close, just about 20 meters away now from docking.
Everything's going nominally. Copy.
By for contact and capture of the International Space Station.
There is contact.
Visiting vehicle officer here in Houston confirming contact and capture has occurred.
There's Tim Peake. Reaction from the families and the VIPs at Baikonur.
Luca Parmitano entering the International Space Station.
My Italian colleague, Luca Parmitano, told me about the emotion he felt when he arrived at the space station, and even more when he heard a voice addressing him from Baikonur, his father's.
Luca, finalmente, dopo una giornata di ansia, spiegato e finalmente sono tranquillo e felice, proprio contento. Ciao Luca.
Ciao papà, qui sono contento perché è bellissimo, sembra di sognare, al di là di qualsiasi cosa che avrei potuto mai immaginare. Tutto, dalla partenza fino all'arrivo qui sulla stazione e poi trovare i miei colleghi che non vedo da un paio di mesi, volare qui in orbita, è tutto quello che immaginavo e ancora di più, la realtà che supera la fantasia.
Living in the ISS is seeing the sun rise and set 16 times a day. It's floating around in a permanent state of weightlessness. It's giving up usual notions of space and time. So, to avoid losing our bearings, our daily schedule resembles that of Earthlings. Getting up and going to bed in line with Greenwich Mean Time. Working from Monday to Saturday, housework at the weekend, and relaxing on Sunday. Except when there's an emergency.
That's what we expected, and verify the status indicator is pointing to the locked position. Okay guys, let us talk for just a second.
For above all, we have to make sure that the ISS, this ultra-complex spacecraft, functions flawlessly.
Copy Chris and copy the gloves, so now you can...
You talked about there was that ultra pressure in the back, right? You're sure that wasn't...
Even if this means venturing out into outer space to carry out repairs.
I think I can finish it in a couple of more minutes.
This is an amazing moment for every astronaut. Being able to go outside the station to see space, the Earth, with a totally different field of vision. Being oneself a satellite of the Earth, that's an extraordinary sight. Now, the decision to go outside or not doesn't depend, alas, on the simple enthusiasm of the astronauts.
Luca, the next maneuver, about 1.25 meters.
Looks clear, clean.
Great news, thanks Tim.
Time to see where our curiosity will take us.
In the space station, everything we do is determined by people other than ourselves. Programmers, research scientists. There are tens of thousands of them down on Earth, remotely orchestrating our exploration journey.
You actually, the extended arms, eyes and legs of the scientists here on the ground. So you execute the science on their behalf. You're not the developer of the technical systems or of the instruments, certainly not. But you have been trained to operate them in the most proficient and best way that you can in order to bring the results back for the scientists here on Earth.
The heart of our mission in the station, offering scientists the opportunity to study the behavior of fluids, matter, organisms in the absence of gravity. These experiments are carried out on proposals by research scientists throughout the world, but they're selected and financed by the space agencies.
The ISS is set up as a research laboratory in which a lot of scientific research is carried out in all domains: chemistry, physics, life sciences, with an increased orientation towards biology, human physiology, in order to prepare future long-term space flights.
So you're both an operator and a guinea pig. We're going to take blood tests, eye tests, photographs of the back of the eye and the retina to observe the changes aboard the ISS. In total, around 200 tests are carried out during a 6-month mission. Most of these tests are devoted to observing the effects on our body of prolonged stays in space.
When you arrive in microgravity, you have what's known as fluid redistribution, in particular venous drainage. Another symptom is facial edema. We say that astronauts have a moon face and chicken legs because their legs dry up, the skin in particular, which is relatively dry in the lower limbs. On the other hand, their face is swollen. They have rhinitis, often headaches.
In all cases, after 2 or 3 days, every astronaut feels fine. It's the doctors who tell us that we've lost calcium, blood volume, muscle mass. So the human body is weak in the extreme environment of space, but we don't feel weak. We feel fine.
To be able to examine us from Earth 400 kilometers away, scientists have invented all kinds of machines. There'll be the experiment with an ultrasound specialist who operates remotely. We'll just have the probe, which will be remotely controlled from the ground. And if this technology works, if it's validated, then this equipment can be used in hospitals and other places. So there's a whole range of experiments that will be carried out and which in the end prove the extreme usefulness of this sort of spaceflight.
To get gloves on. Mel, do you need help? Commander Charlie Hoball, lines Station Atlantis up ports. Touchdown in just over 1 minute.
Certain medical inventions tested by we, the spacemen, will then be used to improve life for humans on Earth. One of the instruments that I'll be using in the ISS was invented in France, in the Loire region. Here you have to travel dozens of kilometers to find a specialist doctor, such as Professor Arbet. This clinical ultrasound specialist is also a sort of gyro gear loose. Here he's testing the efficiency of his latest invention that I'll take with me into space.
Can you hear me there? Yes, I hear you.
It's a robotically controlled probe which enables him to perform an ultrasound scan on a patient 60 kilometers away in the small town of Richelieu.
Have you connected the surface probe?
He's working with Dr. Sakamondi, a general practitioner whose role is limited to holding the ultrasound probe.
That's it?
But before being able to use it on a daily basis here on Earth, it's with me that Professor Arbet will be using it.
And there turn the probe 90 degrees so that we have the carotid the right way around. When you work with astronauts up in space, just like this general practitioner here in Richelieu, they're not ultrasonographers. Don't move, I'm going to do the Doppler as well. So it's the same system that's used to perform remote ultrasound scans on people living in isolated areas and on astronauts who are too far away from us. We use the same apparatus. Stay where you are now, at the sternum, and I'll do the rest to try and see the pancreas. Ultrasound scanning isn't a question of image, it's a question of dexterity. It's like with chefs. Some can add the correct amount of salt with their fingers and others can't. It's the same with ultrasound scanning. Depending on whether you make a movement like this, or 2 degrees more, which is imperceptible, you get the correct diagnosis or you get it wrong. Good. I'll save the photo. So Thomas Pesquet is going to carry out ultrasound scans with an image quality that will enable us to obtain information that we didn't have until now. He'll also be able to do ultrasound scans on organs that couldn't be done before because we didn't have a remotely controlled probe and because he himself wouldn't have had the necessary training to do it. I'm going to turn the probe 90 degrees to try and see the aorta. There it is. I have it.
Thanks to this invention, Professor Arbet will be able to measure in real time the impact of a long-term spaceflight on my body. He'll check, in particular, my artery walls.
We noticed that after 6 months, the astronauts had an artery wall thickness equivalent to what they would have had if they were 30 years older. For now, it's reversible after 6 months, but after 18 months, for example, we don't know. So if you send someone into space for 6 months, it's okay. But for 9 months or 12 months, part of the thickness will remain. And that's extremely serious because it means that we've artificially aged him by sending him out on a long stay in space. So this is a sort of punishment, which isn't desirable. And the cause, in all evidence, isn't microgravity, but rather the stressful environment in which they are in microgravity. Stress occurs when you're in an environment, a space module, and you know that there's danger on the other side of the wall, which is only a few millimeters thick, so the slightest meteorite that passes means instant death for everybody. So you're living in an environment that isn't as reassuring as here, for example. So we're going to create an anti-stress through physical or medical means. We don't know yet. We're interested in a very specific problem, which is the aging of the arterial wall, which exists on Earth, and which we discovered in space. It's a case study model, so if we find solutions to slow down arterial aging in space, we can apply this to seniors here, including myself, and we'll all be happy to benefit from this.
To keep our bodies fit, the scientists have come up with one remedy: physical exercise. In the space station, no less than 2.5 hours of gym per day are devoted to toning our muscles with machines specially adapted to a microgravity environment. We have a weightlifting device with vacuum cylinders so we can do lots of different movements. We particularly work on the back muscles, which enable us to stand and keep the backbone straight. On Earth, we use these muscles every day without thinking about it. Up there in the space station, we don't need them. And we also have an exercise bike, but without a seat because we don't need to sit down. We just need to have our feet attached to it to pedal like this. So it's a bit repetitive, obviously, but it helps us to clear our heads after a day's work. But to survive during space flights far from the planet Earth, it's not enough for us to simply remain healthy. We also need to be self-sufficient, as we won't be able to obtain fresh supplies during the flight. We therefore have to manage to grow plants in space and one day even on other planets. To do this, European and American scientists seek our help to carry out experiments in an attempt to understand the growth process of plants. At the Museum of Natural History in Paris, Eugénie Carneiro-Diaz's research team had the opportunity to grow plants in the space station in 2010 and to observe their development in weightless conditions. A unique opportunity for this team of biologists to attempt to discover the secrets of living organisms.
Plants have always known gravity from the moment life emerged from water. So the experiments we want to carry out in the ISS are preparatory experiments to understand what will happen to plants, how they will grow in a weightless environment over a long period of time.
In the space biology laboratory, a machine is able to eliminate part of the gravity and demonstrate the role played by the Earth's gravity in plant growth. Subjected to gravity, the roots grow downwards in the Earth and thus easily find there the water and mineral salts necessary for their development. When the gravity decreases, on the other hand, the roots grow haphazardly. What will happen in the complete absence of gravity? Will plants be able to grow in space with such disorganized roots? Only a plant culture in weightless conditions in the space station can answer these essential questions.
The seeds are placed here. They'll sprout thanks to the water present in the culture medium and thus grow. Once the seeds are sealed inside these culture dishes, we're going to place them inside a bigger dish, also sealed. And it's these dishes that are going to be taken to the ISS by the astronauts and placed in the European culture module.
The experiment only lasts a few days, and the plants, frozen in order to conserve them, then sit for several long months inside a drawer in the space station before being brought back to Earth by a supply spacecraft and taken back to the laboratory. And only then can they deliver their results.
When our plants came back from the ISS in 2010, we were eager to see what they were like on the inside. We extracted proteins from them, and these proteins showed us that despite their healthy appearance, they were suffering on the inside. That is to say, they were in a stressed state.
The biologists still don't know if, despite this, the plants could continue to develop and reproduce over several generations in order to meet the astronauts' needs.
The impact of such fundamental research is to be able to set up a life support system for the astronauts for long-term space flights. Life support, which means that the presence of the plants will enable the setting up of acceptable living conditions for the astronauts by providing oxygen, by absorbing CO2, and by providing them with food.
In this vegetal adventure, my colleagues Scott, Kiel and Kimia reached a new crucial stage in 2015.
Tastes good? Yeah. I like that. Kind of like arugula.
They grew and tasted the first space lettuce in human history. But there still remain dozens of experiments to be carried out before we can one day hope to have our own vegetable patch in outer space. In the meantime, we continue to advance research through the use of cutting-edge technology. Technology invented for space and which is often found in our everyday life on Earth. Did you know, for example, that the lenses of certain scratch-resistant glasses use the same protective coating as astronauts' helmets? Wireless tools came into existence with the Apollo missions when they were used to extract lunar rock. They are still essential during our extravehicular spacewalks. The ear thermometer uses the temperature measuring techniques of planets and stars. As for the memory foam mattress, it's made with the same material as the spacecraft seats invented to relieve pressure during takeoff.
T-minus 30 seconds on my mark.
Hi, I'm NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden. Ever since NASA's founding in 1958, the technologies that we've developed to power space exploration have also found a home right here on Earth. In fact...
So space research will benefit you in your everyday life. At least that's the message that NASA wants to convey to the general public to justify the astronomical sums invested in space exploration.
To date, our technology transfer programs have helped to create more than 1,800 spin-offs. There's more space in your life than you think.
But out in orbit, our mission remains above all to explore the unknown, to increase scientific knowledge, to help scientists turn their utopian dream into reality.
This research work on the role of gravity in plant growth, in alloy mixtures of materials and fluids, provides us with essential information that adds to our knowledge of our environment and of our objects.
But one day, science will have to find another support for such experiments. For the International Space Station is living on borrowed time. I almost wasn't able to embark aboard the ISS. Its end was initially programmed for 2011, then for 2016. for lack of budget. Fortunately for me, it has once again been extended.
We can end the ISS if we have something to replace it with. But today, there's no other program planned before 2025. We're maybe not going to make any extraordinary discoveries in the next 10 years, but we need the ISS to prepare long-term, long-distance space flights that will one day take us to an asteroid, to Mars.
I hope there'll be other missions. There's talk of collaboration with the Chinese, who are constructing or about to construct a station in low Earth orbit. And there's also talk of flights going even further distances. The ISS is not an end in itself, it's a step on this road to exploration. I think we all have a bit of explorer in us. I see it in my colleagues. When the day comes to go somewhere where man has never set foot before, we'll all volunteer for it. A new station. A village on the moon. On planet Mars. Whatever happens, there'll be life after the ISS. A multitude of space projects that will open up new horizons, stretching out towards infinity.
One